Blackout drills, missile tests, naval exercises and cancelled leaves. India is preparing for war as Pakistan continues to provoke, with an 11th straight day of ceasefire violations along the line of control. India is also targeting Pakistan's economy by curbing trade, cutting water supplies, shutting ports and denying market access to Pakistani goods. On the other side, they are trying to control the narrative by talking to their debtors and holding farcical tours along the line of control. Meanwhile, many countries have offered to mediate and India has one answer for all of them. Thanks but no thanks. We need partners, not preachers. And one such partner is proving to be Russia. President Putin called Prime Minister Modi today and promised, quote-unquote, full support to India. Plus a special report on exposing Pakistan's terror playbook. In the other news that we are tracking, Singapore's ruling party has won again. How has it stayed in power for more than 6 decades? How Meta is in trouble in Nigeria and instead of paying a fine, it is threatening the government. Why the UK has changed its tune and is offering to share the Kohinur. What should India make of it? And why Lady Gaga's Rio concert was historic with 2.5 million fans and a bomb threat. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Russian President Putin accepts Prime Minister Modi's invitation to visit India. Putin will attend the 23rd India-Russia Annual Summit to be held later this year. He confirmed his participation during a phone call with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Both leaders reiterated their commitment to strengthening bilateral ties. During the call, President Putin also condemned the Pahalgam terror attack. Israel's cabinet approves a plan calling for the conquest of Gaza. It includes holding of territories in the besieged strip. The cabinet also agreed to expand military operations in the Palestinian territory. The Israeli army has called up thousands of reservists for this offensive. For more than 2 months, Israel has blocked all aid to Gaza, leading to fears of a famine. The Alternative for Germany party sues the country's intelligence agency over its right-wing extremist label. It will help authorities monitor the far-right party with phone taps and undercover agents. The move has strained Berlin's ties with Donald Trump's administration. Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio have both defended the AFD. The top United Nations court dismisses the Sudan's case against the United Arab Emirates. It was over alleged complicity in genocide in the Sudanese civil war. The Sudan had taken the UAE to the International Court of Justice over Abu Dhabi's alleged support for the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces or RSF. The UAE has strongly denied these accusations. And armed men opened fire inside a club in Damascus, killing a woman. This is the second attack in a week targeting the Syrian capital's nightlife. These incidents come amid fears that the country's new Islamist authorities could impose restrictions on public behavior. Our skies are clear, our waters are still, but on the land frontier, gunfire is ringing. I'm talking about the line of control. Pakistan continues to fire across the LOC. On paper, there is a ceasefire along this frontier, but Pakistan is violating it every day. Firing was reported last night as well. It marked the 11th consecutive night of ceasefire violations by Pakistan. Of course, India is responding. The army says adequate measures have been taken. There are 2 things to note about these firings. One, it is happening across the LOC. Before the ceasefire, the firing used to be localized, but now it's happening everywhere, in Kupwara, in Baramulla, in Poonch, Rajauri, Naushera, Pargwal. That suggests that Pakistan is intensifying these attacks. Secondly, the motive could be different. Earlier, Pakistan would give cover fire for infiltrators. This time, the firing is a lot more aggressive, perhaps to deter Indian troops from mounting operations. As of now, Pakistan is only using small arms, things like rifles and handguns, but reports say artillery guns will also be ready. Away from the LOC, Pakistan is also testing its missiles. They've done 2 tests in 3 days. The first was done on Saturday. Pakistan test-fired the Abdali weapons system. This is a surface-to-surface missile. Its range is 450 kilometers, the Abdali. Then today, another missile was tested. It's called the Fateh surface-to-surface missile. It has a range of 120 kilometers. Take a look at this. So 2 missile tests in 3 days. Clearly, Pakistan is trying to send a message. And how is India responding? By stepping up military preparedness. Yesterday, a blackout drill was held in Punjab in the Ferozepur Cantonment area. All power was cut from 9 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. The residents were also asked to stay indoors. The army said it was part of a routine exercise. But why blackouts? And why Ferozepur? You see, during wartime, power facilities tend to be targeted. So cities should be equipped to handle blackouts. More importantly, lights can guide the enemy. They can draw fighter jets or drones to specific targets. The goal is to prevent that from happening. But why Ferozepur? Let me show you on the map. Look at how close it is to the international border. In the 1971 war, Pakistan attacked Ferozepur. So the army has reason to be careful here. Such blackout drills have been done there before, like in 2001 after the parliament attack. Hence the decision to start with Ferozepur. More such drills are being planned. The Union Home Ministry has released an order. It is asking states to organize mock drills. We're talking about air raid sirens, blackout measures, camouflaging and evacuation. Basically, a full-fledged drill. It is scheduled to happen on Wednesday. Out at sea, the Indian Navy is also conducting drills. The latest one began on Saturday. This exercise is scheduled to end by Wednesday. And these are live fire drills, meaning live ammunition will be used. The idea is to simulate war-like situations to test out the Navy's readiness. And where is it happening? Somewhere in the Arabian Sea. The Indian Navy has been quite busy since the Pahalgam attack. They have test-fired multiple weapons from warships, like anti-ship missiles and anti-aircraft missiles. If war breaks out, the Navy will play a very important role, whether it's to blockade Pakistan or to take out their naval assets. But in a limited military operation, the Indian Navy's role could be very different. It could be more about alertness and power projection. And we saw that over the weekend. The Indian Navy posted this picture on social media, and it reminds everyone of the trident of India's naval power. You've got the INS Kolkata in the background, which is a naval destroyer. You have a Dhruv helicopter buzzing in the skies, and finally, a Scorpion-class submarine. All of this in just one picture. It's a clear message to Pakistan's military: do not get adventurous. The Air Force has also been holding drills. Last week, fighter jets practiced landing on an expressway. Before that, they simulated strikes over central India. So clearly, the goal is to be ready. And that also means stocking the arsenal. India has fast-tracked missile procurement for the army, specifically for the Russian Igla-S missiles. These have a 6-kilometer range. They're used to take out drones and enemy helicopters. The Indian Army received one shipment recently, but reports say that more have been approved. Around 48 launchers and 85 missiles. This latest order is being fast-tracked. India's domestic production is also being monitored. Reports say that ordnance factories are cancelling long leaves for employees. Now, these are factories that make weapons for India. Most of them are state-owned. They're called ordnance factories. The government says there is no blanket order on leaves, but several factories are not taking chances. They want to be on alert. Leaves have reportedly been cancelled at MIL factories too. MIL stands for Munitions India Limited. It's a state-run company with 12 factories. Again, the idea is not to create panic. The idea is to be ready. I know the public sentiment is very strong. They want immediate retribution, but the government is taking its time. The goal should not be to strike fast. The goal should be to strike well. And that's why preparedness is key. So India is turning the screws on Pakistan. The Chenab River is thinning. Water levels have plunged in Akhnoor near Jammu. Gates at major dams have been closed. And the impact is clear. Parts of the Chenab River flowing towards Pakistan are drying up. And this drying up is not seasonal, it is strategic. India has halted the controlled release of water from its dams. It started with the Baglihar Dam on the Chenab River. The next is the Kishanganga Dam. It is built on a tributary of the Jhelum River. India could shut the gates of this dam too. Now, as you know, Chenab and Jhelum are rivers. They are both part of the Indus Treaty, a treaty that set the rules for water sharing between India and Pakistan, a treaty that India has suspended after the Pahalgam terror attack. And now the dams on these rivers are being leveraged. They give India control over the release of water, over when to release and how much to release. That control is now being weaponized. And this is very important because Pakistan depends heavily on the Indus system. 75% of its renewable water comes from outside the country and most of it comes from India. Cities like Karachi and Lahore, they depend on these waters. Pakistan's farmers need these waters. 90% of their crops are watered through these rivers. So the Indus River network is critical for Pakistan's survival. The water supply was protected by the Indus Treaty, but India has suspended the treaty. This is a treaty that withstood wars and tensions for more than 6 decades. It was brokered by the World Bank back in 1960. This treaty survived 4 wars and years of cross-border attacks. In all these years, India never touched the Indus water. But this time it's different. By suspending this treaty, India has changed the rules of engagement. Earlier, before the gates of the dams were opened, India had to notify Pakistan. But that rule no longer applies. And that's not all. India is building on this strength. It has begun work to expand the reservoir capacity at key dams in Kashmir. It is also clearing out some dams, like the Salal and Baglihar dams. These reservoirs are being flushed out. The process itself is called flushing. And here's how it works. First, the gates of these dams are open. Then the waters in the reservoir is released. And then the dam is filled up again. Now, this has never been done before, not since the dams were built. Like I said earlier, India had to inform Pakistan before undertaking such an operation. But that's not the case anymore. With the Indus Treaty on pause, India can spring a surprise. It doesn't have to operate within old limits. And this shift is not isolated. It is part of a broader Indian response. New Delhi has suspended all mail and parcel exchanges with Pakistan. Air and surface routes have all been shut. Indian ports are no longer accessible to Pakistan. Ships bearing Pakistan's flag have now been banned from docking. And Indian ships will no longer visit any Pakistani ports. Plus, trade links are being severed. Customs is on high alert. Officials say Pakistan is trying to bypass bans. They're trying to relabel products and reroute goods into India through third countries. This includes items worth over $500 million, things like fruits, textiles, rock salt. Pakistan is trying to send all of it into India through third countries, and India is stopping that. Indian authorities are watching all these routes. And they have one aim: to hit Pakistan where it hurts the most, to bleed its already fragile economy. Do you know what Pakistan's leadership is doing about this? Their parliamentarians, what are they doing? They've given themselves a massive salary hike in the middle of all of this, a salary hike for lawmakers. Last week, Pakistan's President Asif Ali Zardari signed an ordinance. It raised salaries of lawmakers by 140%. I will repeat, at a time when their cities could run out of water, at a time when their trade is drying up, these so-called lawmakers of Pakistan are giving themselves a 140% hike. Meanwhile, India is pulling one lever at a time. First, water, then trade and transit, and now post and ports. Each step sends a message that the time for restraint is over and the rules of engagement have changed.
India alleges that there are terrorist camps.
The movie industry loves a rejigged script. But it looks like Pakistan is giving them some tough competition. Islamabad has dug out its old script again. Act 1, cry Kashmir. Act 2, drag in the United Nations. Act 3, draw media attention. And Act 4, hope that the world misses the plot. What's different this time is this: the production values are higher and the desperation is record-breaking. A meeting is set to be held today, a closed-door meeting of the United Nations Security Council. Agenda: the Pahalgam terror attack. The meeting was scheduled by Greece, but make no mistake, it was requested by Pakistan. And that is thanks to another cruel joke. Pakistan is currently a non-permanent member of the United Nations Security Council, a terror state, part of the United Nations Security Council. The UNSC has a total of 15 members. 5 of them are permanent. That's the US, the UK, France, Russia and China. 5 permanent members. The other 10 rotate every 2 years. And currently, Pakistan has a seat at the table. Islamabad is using that seat to push its old agenda. Earlier, they pressured the council to water down its statement, to scrub the name of a terror group from the statement on Pahalgam. Pakistan forced that. Now they want the whole show behind closed doors. And India knows how the charade plays out. Last week, India warned the United Nations. It said that Pakistan was undermining the body and using the platform for propaganda. New Delhi also spoke to all non-permanent members, barring, of course, Pakistan. So India is making sure that Pakistan does not monopolize the mic. And sure enough, Pakistan has a plan B. Lights, camera, propaganda. Produced and directed by Rawalpindi. Today, they organized a junket to the LOC, the line of control, the de facto border between India and Pakistan. Pakistan took local and foreign journalists to the LOC. And leading them was a man called Ataullah Tarar. He is Pakistan's Minister for Information and Broadcasting.
There are so many contradictions in their case. There are so many anomalies in their case that they are not able to prove themselves. And we are here proactively on one of the spots where India alleges that there are terrorist camps. You can see for yourself, ladies and gentlemen, there are no terrorist camps. Yes, we have beautiful mountains. The grass is green. The people are beautiful. People are going about their business as usual. And there are no terrorists here, as India alleges, because India has no evidence. They've just leveled this baseless allegation, and you can see for yourself.
The mountains are beautiful and the grass is green. That's quite the pitch there. So why would they organize such a tour amid rising tensions? To sell lies. Pakistan runs terror camps near the border with India. That is a fact. India has called them out on this. So Islamabad had to spin it somehow. And what better way to do it than a planned visit? You control the lens, you frame the shot, and then you call it journalism. A tour de farce to the LOC. But just in case the border tour does not sell, Islamabad has a supporting cast with a bunch of members. The first is Turkey. They're supporting Pakistan in more ways than one. On Sunday, a Turkish naval warship arrived in Karachi. It is called the TCG Buyukada. Pakistan says the purpose of this visit is to strengthen maritime cooperation. The timing is obviously suspect. Last week, a plane, in fact, landed in Karachi, a Turkish Air Force C-130 aircraft. It landed in Karachi. Reports said that this plane was carrying arms. Turkey rejected those claims. They said the plane had landed only for refueling. Meanwhile, China is playing the usual role of a quiet patron. The Chinese ambassador is holding meetings. He's met both Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and President Asif Ali Zardari. He has reaffirmed China's support to Pakistan and also urged restraint. And none of this should be surprising. If you made $1 billion investment, you would check on it. That's what Beijing is doing, basically, checking on its unstable investment. But what is Pakistan trying to do through all of this? It is hoping to stay relevant. You see, they know that they're not taken seriously on the global stage, neither economically nor politically. Pakistan has overplayed the Kashmir card. It has underdelivered on counter-terrorism. It has dug itself into a debt hole and run the farce of a civilian government. Despite all of this, it wants to be taken seriously by the world. But here's the thing. Relevance is earned, not manufactured. No amount of media tours or UNSC drama can buy Islamabad what it really wants: international credibility. Pakistan may stick to the same Kashmir script like an aging actor, But the box office has moved on. The world is not buying those tickets anymore.
We look for partners. We don't look for preachers.
Tensions are clearly simmering, and that too between two nuclear neighbors, so the world is rightly worried. Major powers are advising caution and restraint. Some are positioning themselves as mediators. The question is, what's in it for these peace brokers? Can India trust them? And what is their plan? Well, Iran is hoping to be one such mediator. Their foreign minister landed in Islamabad yesterday. He is slated to visit India on Thursday. And what's he saying? That all parties should exercise restraint. It is not clear if these visits were planned after the attack. Nonetheless, they're very important. The next mediator is Malaysia. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif spoke to the Malaysian Prime Minister yesterday. And look at his statement afterwards. Malaysia remains open to playing a constructive role. Our close ties with both Pakistan and India place us in a position to support efforts towards regional peace and stability. So Malaysia is keen to mediate, and the list does not end there. Pakistan has reached out to Saudi Arabia, the UAE and Kuwait. It is asking all these players to mediate. And how is India reacting? Well, we haven't heard a direct response yet, but yesterday Foreign Minister S. Jaishankar addressed the broader issue. He did not speak about Iran or the Gulf mediators. He was speaking about the powers in Europe, and they too, by the way, are asking India to not escalate. So this is what Jaishankar said. New Delhi does not need preachers, it needs partners.
We look for partners. We don't look for preachers. Particularly preachers who don't practice at home what they preach abroad. And I think some of Europe is still struggling with that problem. Some of it is changing. If we are to develop a partnership, there has to be some understanding, there has to be some sensitivity, there has to be a mutuality of interest, and there has to be a realization of how the world works.
Partners need not mean mediators. And I'll give you two reasons why. Number one, these are not neutral brokers. Iran's supreme leader has repeatedly meddled in Kashmir. He has compared Kashmir to Gaza and Yemen. So Tehran cannot be unbiased here. Same with Malaysia. Their Prime Minister says he understands Pakistan's difficulties. How absurd is that? The terror attack happened in India, but Malaysia understands Pakistan's difficulty. Also, they do not recognize Jammu and Kashmir. They call it Indian-administered Kashmir. Even yesterday's statement was the same. So these are not neutral mediators. They have taken Pakistan's side quite frequently. Which brings us to the second reason, and arguably the most important one. India does not need any mediator. New Delhi has always called Kashmir a bilateral issue, meaning there is room for just two parties here, and that is India and Pakistan. No other party, no third party has a place here. Not Iran, not the Americans, not even well-meaning Gulf states. Yes, they may have close ties with New Delhi, but they also have historic relations with Pakistan. So why risk it? Of course, Islamabad will keep pushing for mediation because that is their only hope. They have a twin agenda here. One is to globalize the Kashmir issue. If it remains bilateral, Pakistan cannot compete with India because India is way more powerful. But if other countries join in, they can try and build pressure on New Delhi, and that has always been Pakistan's strategy. Hence their attempt to raise Kashmir at multilateral forum. They want to globalize the Kashmir issue. The second agenda is to distract the world. Just think about it. What triggered these tensions? It was Pakistan's terrorism. That's what started it. But what is the world talking about now? An India-Pakistan conflict. About the spectre of a nuclear confrontation. It's a classic distraction attempt. Islamabad does not want the world to focus on terrorism. It wants the world to see an India-Pakistan conflict. Only then can it play the victim card. The question is, how should India navigate this? Well, mediation is a slippery slope. It may help during full-scale wars, but it does not help in times like this. In fact, it opens up the arena to new players. You cannot control what those players want, you cannot control their politics, and you cannot control their tactics. India would be wise to remember that.
Can it be attached to the whims and fancies of a mullah madrasa bred general of the Pak army? Who actually gains from drawing Bharat into a kinetic engagement and escalation at this time, in this region and also geopolitically? Is the real enemy operating from the shadows? Was Pahalgam plotted in Beijing? We ask. And viewers, we urge you to think about this and consider. And by resisting a knee-jerk kinetic reaction, सीधा जाके मिसाइल फोड़ देते. That knee-jerk reaction would have had repercussions, consequences, and perhaps you would have been drawn into something that would have hurt us in the long run. Has Bharat, by resisting a knee-jerk reaction, kinetic reaction, dodged a possible strategic ambush? Let's try and understand this in greater detail and perhaps more perspective. Tilak Devashaji, former member of the NSAB, author himself who understands this region and geopolitics, has been a regular with us on the right stand. Thank you once again for being with us here on the show, Tilakji. Always a pleasure. Andrew K. Pilum, China strategist, and we'll understand the Beijing perspective and of course his own understanding of this region. But first we'll go across to Srimoy Talukdar, senior editor First Post, who's written a fantastic piece about this very possibility. So Srimoy, what prompted you to write, and you have qualified by saying this is all circumstantial evidence. We have to consider this possibility. There is nothing actionable to say that Beijing perhaps was involved. But is it in Beijing's interest that Bharat gets engaged into a regional war or regional conflict?
Anand, thanks for having me here. In any financial crime, when investigators start their operations, they always look for this very small thing. It's called follow the money. Where is the money trail gone? So if you take that paradigm and apply it here, as in who benefits from an India-Pakistan kinetic action right now? If you follow this question and go to the logical end, then you will come up with the obvious answer. Because see, Pakistan, it is not in Pakistan's interest to launch a war against India. The country can hardly sustain itself. It's a banana republic. It's somehow carrying on its daily activities through doles from different financial institutions, and it is at the mercy of many other bigger powers. So for Pakistan, the primary focus should be its internal stability as well as development of its very poor people. Their per capita income is even lower than in India. So why would a country which has basically, and Pakistani generals, regardless of what they claim, they know that they can never take Kashmir away from India. So what is this big point about fighting wars with India every now and then? But if you look at this from another angle, that Pakistan is acting not as a sovereign country but as a mercenary state, and it is being used by another country which directly does not want to get involved and enjoys plausible deniability, it is then according to my understanding that the pieces start making a lot more sense. Because if Pakistan and India go into a kinetic action, escalation dominance is very difficult, because Pakistan's conventional warfare is obviously India enjoys slight advantage over it. But many former army chiefs and people who follow this who have domain expertise in the angles, they have said that it is difficult for India to establish escalation dominance over Pakistan in any conventional warfare. So it will be a war of attrition. There will be escalation. One side will hit, the other side will absorb, then hit back, and will go on. So Pakistan is already a basket case, and there is no international investments there. It doesn't have the country doesn't have a future, but India has. And if India is somehow trapped into this cycle of escalation, then the country which benefits the most at this geopolitical inflection point is China, because the US-China rivalry has reached such a point, and because of the fact that an American president is in power who is not afraid to take radical steps, China is in a difficult spot of bother. And I had tackled
Now let's look beyond the subcontinent. While others are busy lecturing India, Russia has picked up the phone. President Vladimir Putin spoke to Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. That call happened today. And here's what we know. Putin again condemned the Pahalgam terror attack. He expressed solidarity with India. More importantly, here's what Putin emphasized, and I'm quoting, "The perpetrators and supporters behind the heinous terror attack must be brought to justice." Let me decode that for you. This was no ordinary courtesy call. This was Putin's green signal. Russia is telling India, we've got your back. Basically, Moscow will support New Delhi in whatever India does next, including military action. Until now, Russia's foreign minister was doing the talking. I'm talking about this man, Sergei Lavrov. On Saturday, he spoke to India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. Lavrov condemned the Pahalgam terror attack. He urged India and Pakistan to engage in talks. He referred to the Shimla Agreement of 1972 and the Lahore Declaration of 1999. These are pacts that mandate India and Pakistan to resolve disputes bilaterally. But here's where things get interesting. Pakistan has suspended the Shimla Agreement. This is after India suspended the Indus Waters Treaty. This was Pakistan's response, suspension of the Shimla Agreement. So the Shimla Agreement is now out of the question. That leaves us with the Lahore Declaration. This treaty was signed between India and Pakistan in February 1999. The Lahore Declaration, it mandates both sides to refrain from using nuclear weapons. And guess what? 3 months after the Lahore Declaration, India and Pakistan fought the Kargil War. Despite the fighting, the Lahore Declaration held. Nuclear weapons were not used in that war. Maybe that's what Russia's foreign minister is hinting at, that military action is okay as long as it is below the nuclear threshold. Now let's look at Russia's signaling vis-a-vis Pakistan. What are they telling Pakistan? Yesterday, Lavrov spoke to his counterpart in Islamabad, the Pakistani foreign minister, and the message was somewhat different. No mention of preventing an escalation, no talk about adhering to past agreements. Instead, Russia offered to act as a negotiator between India and Pakistan. So what's the takeaway? Two messages have emerged from Moscow. First, from President Putin. He is assuring India of full support. And second, from Foreign Minister Lavrov, he is calling for dialogue. And that is diplomacy 101. Russia is playing the role of a classic mediator. Moscow is talking to both sides. It looks like a neutral player, yet it is clearly aligned. And President Putin's call with Prime Minister Modi is the biggest giveaway of that. Also, this is not new. Russia has played this role before. Like in 2019, after the Pulwama terror attack, when a suicide bomber killed 40 Indian troops. President Putin called Prime Minister Modi back then too. And the message was this: punish the attackers and their backers. Sounds familiar? Well, let's go further back in time. We've already told you about the 1999 Kargil War. Russia asked both sides to de-escalate. The tone was the same. Stick to the Shimla Agreement, stick to the Lahore Declaration. But Moscow kept backing New Delhi's position. Bilateral relations kept growing behind the scenes. Even deliveries of weapons were fast-tracked. Fast forward to today. Times may have changed, but Russia's stance remains the same. Terrorists and their supporters should be punished. And Moscow is clearly supporting New Delhi here. We'll tell you how. Russia has just sent more weapons to India, shoulder-fired anti-aircraft missiles. These are highly effective against helicopters and drones. In fact, Russia has deep ties with India. It remains the biggest weapons supplier to New Delhi. Almost 65% of all weapons in the Indian armed forces are Russian, 65%. And then there's oil. India is the second largest buyer of Russian oil. Bilateral trade is at a record high of $66 billion. When the West launched a campaign to isolate Russia in 2022, India kept its doors open. The fact is, Russia and India have been strategic allies for decades. Moscow may urge restraint publicly, but behind closed doors, it wholeheartedly backs India. In a world of shifting loyalties, Russia has been a rare constant for India. One that doesn't preach, but delivers. Now let's look at Pakistan's terror playbook. Step 1, raise and fund terrorist groups. Step 2, orchestrate terror attacks across India. Step 3, deny any involvement. Step 4, demand a neutral investigation. Step 5, play victim and then repeat. Pakistan calls terrorism a rogue element problem. But let's be real here. It is a strategic choice for them. So the next time Islamabad calls for peace and dialogue, remember the script. Even better, let there be no next time. Hold Pakistan accountable this time, not by urging it to change the script, but by burning the whole playbook. Because Pakistani terrorism is not just a regional problem, it is a global threat. Our next report explains.
You may have heard the phrase, if you can't beat them, join them. It means if someone's too strong, it's better to be on the same side. Well, not if you're Pakistan. They do things differently. Their playbook is more like this. If you can't beat them, then wage terror using jihadist groups. Here's what we mean. Pakistan's terror playbook is no secret. It's a tattered manual they've been using for decades. Step 1. Raise, fund and arm terror groups like the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed. Step 2. Extend the army's support to the jihadist groups and orchestrate terror attacks in India. Step 3. Deny everything. Step 4. Demand a neutral investigation into the terror attack. And Step 5. Play the victim card by saying Pakistan suffers the most from terrorism. And then repeat this again and again. Let's start with the obvious. Pakistan is a terrorist haven. The Pakistan Army and its intelligence arm, the ISI, aren't just complicit in spreading terror, they are the architects. Every terror group that was formed in Pakistan has the Pakistani Army's approval, and they have used these proxy groups to attack India. Like the 1993 serial blasts in Mumbai. Over 250 people were killed. But the mastermind, Dawood Ibrahim, still lives freely in Pakistan despite global sanctions. The Pakistan Army's favorite VIP is still Hafiz Saeed, the terrorist who masterminded the 2001 Parliament attack and the 2008 26/11 attack in Mumbai. Saeed reportedly lives comfortably in a highly guarded residential building in Lahore. And who can forget Osama bin Laden, the most wanted global terrorist who was the mastermind of the 9/11 terror attack on the United States. Bin Laden was found and killed in a raid while living next door to a Pakistan army camp. Every time India has suffered a terror attack, it always has Pakistan's fingerprints all over it. Despite providing volumes of evidence, Islamabad just says, "Not me." Instead, Pakistan sticks to its playbook and calls for a neutral investigation. But here's the reality. No progress has been made on the 26/11 Mumbai attack trial from Pakistan's side. This is despite one of the terrorists admitting that he was sent by them. Not to mention the piles of other evidence India shared and the international condemnation that followed. Hafiz Saeed, the mastermind, still roams freely. Now let's look at the 2016 Pathankot terror attack, the one on an Indian Air Force base. India decided to give Pakistan a chance. Officials from Islamabad were invited to investigate the attack. So what did Pakistan do? They stalled investigations and gave protection to the perpetrators. Pakistan says it's a victim of terrorism too, except nobody asked them to sow the seeds of terror. That has been Islamabad's policy since partition. The truth is that India has suffered from Pakistan-sponsored terrorism for decades. The world is only waking up now. They have understood Pakistan's playbook and are tired of the crocodile tears.
Another week, another big tech firm slapped with a fine. We're talking about Meta, the US-based social media giant. Meta is the parent company of Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp, and it has been hit by a $290 million fine in Nigeria. That's right, $290 million. The saga began in 2021. Nigerian oversight agencies started investigating Meta. The probe went on for 30 months. And its findings pointed to, and I'm quoting, invasive practices by Meta. Agencies claimed that the tech giant was illegally sharing user data. So last year, Meta was asked to pay 3 different fines. First, a $220 million fine for alleged anti-competitive practices. Second, a $37.5 million fine for unapproved advertising. And third, a $32.8 million fine for allegedly violating data privacy laws. So that's 3 fines. The total penalty comes up to $290 million. There are a couple of other demands too. Nigeria wants Meta to seek prior approval before transferring personal data out of the country. It wants a specific icon added to educational videos. It also wants a list of unfair practices. These are ways in which Meta processes data which could harm Nigerians. They want a list of that. In short, Nigeria is cracking the whip, and unsurprisingly, Meta is not happy. It says the demands are quote-unquote unrealistic. So Meta challenged this in court, and it failed. Now it must pay the fine. The deadline is the end of June. But the company has not given up. After losing the legal bid, Meta has pulled out a secret weapon. It has tossed a little threat in the ring. It says it may shut down Facebook and Instagram in Nigeria. And this threat has fueled the flames. The Nigerian competition body has slammed Meta, calling it a calculated move to pressure the government, accusing it, and I'm quoting, accusing it of blackmailing Nigeria to avoid the fine and reiterating that threatening to leave Nigeria does not absolve Meta of liabilities. The company is yet to respond to this, but in all likelihood, this threat is a bluff. I'll give you 3 reasons why it's a bluff. First, Nigeria is not the only battleground for this tech giant. Government after government is slapping fines on Meta, from India and South Korea to France and Australia. In fact, last year, Australia saw the blackmail playbook in action. Meta said it will block a feature on Facebook after it was penalized in the country. But this turned out to be an empty threat. So Meta has faced penalties for several breaches in many countries, including the violation of data privacy or advertising laws. And the fines are steep. If $250 million sounds like a lot, look at what happened last year. Meta settled a $1.4 billion lawsuit by the Texas government. This was for the unauthorized use of people's biometric data. And now they're in trouble in Nigeria. Yet instead of complying, Meta is acting like a teenager, throwing a fit. But leaving Nigeria will be a costly option. And that's reason number 2 why this threat is a bluff. Nigeria is Africa's most populous country. It has one of the world's highest number of internet users, with about 164 million internet subscriptions. Facebook is by far the most popular social media platform in Nigeria. It is not just used for communication by people, it is wildly popular among small businesses. So if the parent company chooses to walk away, Nigerian users won't be the only ones losing out. Meta will lose too. Which brings me to the 3rd reason why this is a bluff. Meta may escape one penalty in one country, but what about the larger trend? Tech giants everywhere are coming under scrutiny. Last month, the European Union fined Meta and Apple a combined $800 million. Amazon, Google, TikTok, they've all been penalized on several occasions. But instead of fixing the problem, Meta has chosen to blackmail a government. The Kohinur does not need an introduction. It is not just a diamond, it is the diamond. 105 carats of conquest and colonialism. It was born from the mines of Golconda, passed through empires and then stolen by the British. For nearly 2 centuries, the UK has held it tightly. They polished it, recut it and placed it on the heads of queens, as if the Kohinur was simply theirs. But now, for the first time, the British have changed their tune. Suddenly, they're talking about sharing the Kohinur, not returning it, not apologizing for stealing it, just sharing it. The suggestion was made by Lisa Nandi, the UK Secretary of State for Culture. She is a British Minister of Indian origin. Nandi was in New Delhi for an official visit. India and the UK are talking about cooperation on cultural artifacts. And that's where she said this.
We've been talking between the UK and India for quite some time about the way that we think we can collaborate much more closely together to make sure that people both in the UK and in India can benefit from and have access to many of the cultural artefacts that stem back to the time, very different era. That's something that I've discussed with my counterpart.
She was asked about the Kohinur and she acknowledged that it was part of the talks. So the UK is talking about a collaboration. It's not clear what this will entail, but here's a quick primer first. Like I said, the Kohinur was mined in Golconda. Originally, it was around 191 carats. It went from Mughal emperors to Persian invaders, from Afghan rulers to Sikh kings. Then in 1849 came the British. At the end of the Second Anglo-Sikh War, the British East India Company defeated the Sikh Empire. They forced a treaty on the boy king, Dalip Singh. He was just 10 years old. One of the terms was handing over the Kohinur. The diamond was shipped off to London. Queen Victoria had it recut and set into her crown. And ever since, it has lived in the Tower of London, a colonial trophy mistaken for national heritage. For decades, Indian governments have petitioned for its return. They asked the UK to return the Kohinur, but London always had the same answer. The diamond is legally theirs. That's what they said. So what explains the change in tone now? The answer, just like the diamond, has many facets. The first is economy. The UK is scrambling to stay relevant in a post-Brexit world. Their economy is sluggish. They need new partners and new deals, and India is one of them. Negotiations for a free trade agreement have been going on since 2022, but they've been bumpy, delayed by political chaos and lingering mistrust. But the Labour government under Keir Starmer wants to reset the clock. So they're using culture as currency. They're offering symbolic gestures like cultural collaboration on artifacts. It costs very little in reality, but it may go a long way in building goodwill, or so they hope. The second is optics. King Charles was coronated in 2023. At this event, the royal family made a surprising choice. They left the Kohinur out of Queen Camilla's crown. And there were a few reasons for this. One, of course, is to avoid diplomatic issues with India. The other is a broader post-colonial scrutiny. The UK is facing music over its colonial plunder. Its museums are the biggest loot houses in the world. Because let's be honest, if the British Museum starts returning colonial artifacts, it would have nothing left. The world wants the UK to repatriate artifacts like the Kohinur, or the Benin bronzes, or the Elgin marbles. So Britain is now offering compromises, like sharing the Kohinur. What should India make of it? Well, this might be the start of something, or it might be a well-timed distraction. Either way, one thing is quite certain. Talking about sharing the Kohinur is not the same as returning it. It's a step forward, yes, but not far enough, because you cannot share what you stole. You can only give it back. Until then, the Kohinur is not just a diamond. It is a reminder that you cannot polish away the past, no matter how brilliant the diamond is cut.
Can it be attached to the whims and fancies of a mullah madrasa bred general of the Pak army? Who actually gains from drawing Bharat into a kinetic engagement and escalation at this time, in this region and also geopolitically? Is the real enemy operating from the shadows? Was Pahalgam plotted in Beijing? We ask. And viewers, we urge you to think about this and consider. And by resisting a knee-jerk kinetic reaction, सीधा जाके मिसाइल फोड़ देते. That knee-jerk reaction would have had repercussions, consequences, and perhaps you would have been drawn into something that would have hurt us in the long run. Has Bharat, by resisting a knee-jerk reaction, kinetic reaction, dodged a possible strategic ambush? Let's try and understand this in greater detail and perhaps more perspective. Tilak Devashaji, former member of the NSAB, author himself, who understands this region and geopolitics, has been a regular with us on the right stand. Thank you once again for being with us here on the show, Tilakji. Always a pleasure. Andrew K. Pilum, China strategist, and we'll understand the Beijing perspective and of course his own understanding of this region. But first we'll go across to Srimoy Talukdar, senior editor, First Post, who's written a fantastic piece about this very possibility. So Srimoy, what prompted you to write, and you have qualified by saying this is all circumstantial evidence. We have to consider this possibility. There is nothing actionable to say that Beijing perhaps was involved. But is it in Beijing's interest that Bharat gets engaged into a regional war or regional conflict?
Anand, thanks for having me here. In any financial crime, when investigators start their operations, they always look for this very small thing. It's called follow the money. Where is the money trail gone? So if you take that paradigm and apply it here, as in who benefits from an India-Pakistan kinetic action right now? If you follow this question and go to the logical end, then you will come up with the obvious answer. Because see, Pakistan, it is not in Pakistan's interest to launch a war against India. The country can hardly sustain itself. It's a banana republic. It's somehow carrying on its daily activities through doles from different financial institutions, and it is at the mercy of many other bigger powers. So for Pakistan, the primary focus should be its internal stability as well as development of its very poor people. Their per capita income is even lower than in India. So why would a country which has basically, and Pakistani generals, regardless of what they claim, they know that they can never take Kashmir away from India. So what is this big point about fighting wars with India every now and then? But if you look at this from another angle, that Pakistan is acting not as a sovereign country but as a mercenary state, and it is being used by another country which directly does not want to get involved and enjoys plausible deniability, it is then according to my understanding that the pieces start making a lot more sense. Because if Pakistan and India go into a kinetic action, escalation dominance is very difficult, because Pakistan's conventional warfare is obviously India enjoys slight advantage over it. But many former army chiefs and people who follow this who have domain expertise in the angles, they have said that it is difficult for India to establish escalation dominance over Pakistan in any conventional warfare. So it will be a war of attrition. There will be escalation. One side will hit, the other side will absorb, then hit back, and will go on. So Pakistan is already a basket case, and there is no international investments there. It doesn't have the country doesn't have a future, but India has. And if India is somehow trapped into this cycle of escalation, then the country which benefits the most at this geopolitical inflection point is China, because the US-China rivalry has reached such a point, and because of the fact that an American president is in power who is not afraid to take radical steps, China is in a difficult spot of bother. And I had tackled this in an earlier piece where I made the point that she is in a very precarious position. If he...
It's the first Monday of May, which can only mean one thing. It's time for the weirdest dress-up show in the world. I'm talking about the Met Gala. Halloween for adults, minus the treats. You will see people wearing chandeliers, plants and armor on the red carpet, all in the name of fashion. As always, there is an Indian contingent there. Bollywood star Shah Rukh Khan is leading it. Social media users are waiting to see the red carpet looks. And if the past is any indication, it promises to be exciting. Take a look. And now it's time for Vantage shots, images that tell the story. A shoe was thrown at Kenyan President William Ruto during a rally. A massive sandstorm blankets large parts of Saudi Arabia, and full-size Lego F1 cars made from over 400,000 bricks hit the track in Miami. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1895, a cartoon called The Yellow Kid first appeared in the Sunday edition of a New York newspaper. It's considered to be the first commercially successful cartoon. This revolutionized the comic strip industry and boosted newspaper sales. May 5th is now celebrated as the World Cartoonist Day. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
Hello and welcome. You're watching this late night edition with me, Arun Dhanta, here on CNN News 18. Let's start this bulletin with the breaking news at the top. The Parliamentary Standing Committee on Information Technology has expressed serious concerns regarding the role of certain social media influencers and platforms in the aftermath of the terror attack in Pahalgam on 22nd April 2025. The committee noted that some of these entities appear to be acting against the interest of the country, potentially inciting violence through their content. My colleague Payal Mehta is with us on the phone line. Payal, tell us more about this standing committee meeting which is going to take place in the Parliament. Which are these handles which are in fact catching the eye of this committee?
Well, there are various hackers who've been speaking all kind of provocatory messages and all provocatory messages, and that is taken up of the government of India has given on what action has to take. Handles were trying to take disharmony people in India. So that's something which the Nishikant-led committee picked up on the matter in their meeting on the 8th of May. To understand with the all the members that there is no leeway with exercise on such bills or actually speak an anti-language at a time when the entire country and parties are united.
And Payal, what action this committee can take if they find certain handles or influencers are actually breaching the national security or going against the country? What action can be taken on them?
Well, the action, of course, Arun, will have to be taken by the concerned government, which in this case will be the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting and the Media Ministry. And you've seen every day that, you've also reported that multiple handles have been blocked, whether it's Pakistani handles or Pakistani celebrities, or people who have actually, violated the law. As for the intermediary guidelines, anything which violates the spirit of India, anything which violates the sovereignty and the integrity of India is liable to be removed by these platforms. If they fail to remove this, then there, of course, will be action which follows against them as well. So, in this committee, obviously the government will be listing the number of handles who've been removed, against whom action has been taken, what action has been taken, also told to the members. And if the members have any more handles that they want to tell the committee about, the committee will be allowed to, in fact, tell the handles